The training hall smelled like recycled air and fear. Instructor Vrell stood at the front of the classroom, all 7 feet of her mantis-like frame clicking with disapproval as she surveyed the latest batch of Galactic Defense Academy recruits. Her compound eyes glinted under the fluorescent panels, and I swear she was judging every single one of us simultaneously. "Today," she announced, her mandibles clacking together with each syllable, "we discuss predator neutralization protocols." I shifted in my seat, my third arm instinctively reaching for the datapad, while my other 2 took notes the old-fashioned way. "Yeah, I'm the CN. We multitask. It's kind of our thing." Around me sat the usual suspects. Bleep Bloop, a silicon-based life form who communicated through musical tones and was somehow passing this course despite having no concept of violence. Mara, a centaurian with scales that changed color based on her anxiety levels. Right now, bright purple. Not a good sign. And then there was Kade, the human. The human. He sat in the back row, boots propped up on the desk in front of him, looking about as concerned as someone waiting for their coffee order. His species had joined the Galactic Federation only 3 cycles ago, and already they were making waves. Big ones. The kind that make admirals nervous and insurance premiums skyrocket. Question 1. Vrell continued, her voice sharp enough to cut through hull plating. You encounter a Vorgth hunter in close quarters. It masses 4 times your weight, possesses razor claws, and demonstrates aggressive territorial behavior. List 3 ways to disable such a predator. Bleep Bloop chimed something that roughly translated to offer it a friendship bracelet. Mara's scales went from purple to a concerning shade of orange. I started writing down the textbook answers: sonic disruptors, containment fields, emergency protocols. Then Kade raised his hand that Vrell's antennae twitched. "Yes, Cadet Kade? Quick question, ma'am." His voice was casual, almost lazy. "When you say disable, do you mean temporarily or forever?" The room went silent. Like vacuum of space silent, Vrell's mandibles froze mid-click. "Excuse me?" "Well," Kade leaned back further, somehow defying the laws of physics and chair construction. "Temporarily could be a stun, a knockout, maybe some chemical sedation. Forever, though? That's a whole different toolkit we're talking about." Mara's scales flashed white. "I'm pretty sure Bleep Bloop played a minor chord of distress." "Cadet Kade," Vrell said slowly, "Galactic defense protocols emphasize preservation of life and minimal force necessary to, right, minimum force." Kade nodded sagely. "So temporary then. Okay, well, option 1 would be targeting the ocular nerves. Vorgths have those big compound eyes, super sensitive to sudden pressure changes. Quick jab, lots of pain, no permanent damage. They'll be crying too hard to chase you." I stopped writing. This wasn't in any manual I'd read. Option 2, he continued, warming to his subject, exploit the respiratory system. They breathe through those gill slits on their necks, yeah? Controlled strike to induce temporary paralysis of the breathing reflex. They'll drop like a sack of, well, whatever passes for potatoes in Vorgth cuisine. Unconscious in about 8 seconds. Back up in 2 minutes. No long-term issues. Vrell hadn't moved. None of us had. And option 3, Kade said, actually sitting up now, his expression brightening like he'd just remembered a particularly good joke. You could always go for the mating display glands behind their primary arms. Hit those just right, and they'll release this absolutely horrible smell that basically tells every Vorgth in a 5-mile radius that they're, how do I put this academically, experiencing romantic failure. The shame will knock them out faster than any weapon. Plus, it's hilarious. Bleep Bloop played what might have been a laugh. Or a cry for help. Hard to tell. Now, Kade added, his grin widening in that distinctly human way that showed too many teeth. If we're talking permanently disabled, that's a different conversation. I've got at least 12 methods, depending on available materials, environmental factors, and how much cleanup time we're working with. Want me to? That will not be necessary. Vrell interrupted, her voice somehow strangled despite not having vocal cords. Your, enthusiasm is noted. Just trying to be thorough, ma'am. I glanced at my datapad, then at Kade, then back at my datapad. The worst part? Everything he'd said was technically correct. Horrifyingly, efficiently, disturbingly correct. I'd pulled up the Vorgth anatomy files, and yeah, those pressure points existed. Those vulnerabilities were real. Humans had been in the Federation for 3 cycles. 3. And they'd already mapped every species' weak spots like they were studying for a finals exam in creative violence. Mara leaned over, her scales now a confused mix of green and yellow. Is he serious? She whispered. I think so, I whispered back. Should we be concerned? Oh, absolutely. Instructor Vrell had regained her composure, though her antennae kept twitching like they were receiving distress signals from her own brain. She clicked her mandibles twice, the universal signal for moving on before I have a breakdown. Let us proceed to Scenario 2, she announced, her voice only slightly strained. You are cornered by a Krothy pack hunter. These creatures hunt in groups of 5 to 7, communicate through pheromone signals, and demonstrate remarkable coordination. How do you survive this encounter? Standard procedure would be calling for backup, establishing a defensive perimeter, maybe deploying smoke screens to disrupt their chemical communication. I was halfway through writing this down when Kade's hand shot up again. Oh no. Yes, Cadet Kade, Vrell said, and I swear I heard resignation in her voice. Question, ma'am. Am I alone in this scenario, or do I have my squad with me? You are alone. Do I have standard field equipment? Basic survival kit only. Kade nodded thoughtfully, rubbing his chin. Okay, so first thing, Krothy pack coordination falls apart if you eliminate the alpha. They're not like Earth wolves where another steps up. They actually panic for about 30 seconds before scattering. So that's your window. Vrell's eyes somehow widened despite being compound. And how exactly does one eliminate an alpha Krothy with only a survival kit? Well, you don't eliminate it. Not right away. Kade leaned forward, and suddenly everyone in the room was leaning forward too, like he was telling a campfire story. Which, knowing humans, he probably did for fun. See, the alpha always positions itself in the rear during a hunt. Strategic oversight, right? But that means it's relying entirely on pheromone updates from the pack. So you grab your emergency flare, the one in every survival kit, crack it open, and smear that phosphorus compound all over yourself. That would burn your skin, Vrell objected. Yeah, little bit, Kade admitted with a shrug that suggested chemical burns were a minor inconvenience. But now you're giving off a smell that completely overwhelms their pheromone system. To them, you're basically a walking sensory grenade. The pack gets confused, the alpha can't get clear readings, and in that confusion, you single out the weakest member, usually the youngest one at the front. Mara's scales had gone completely gray. Bleep bloop played a note that sounded like existential dread. You take that one down hard and fast. I'm talking maximum aggression. Make it yelp loud enough that the others hear it. Now here's the fun part. Kade's grin was back, and it was terrifying. Krothy have this instinct. When a pack member shows extreme distress, they all converge to protect it. Happens automatically. They can't help it. So they all attack you at once, I said, unable to stop myself. How is that better? Because, Kade said, looking at me like I'd just asked why water was wet. Now they're not coordinated anymore. They're panicked. And panicked predators make mistakes. They get in each other's way, snap at each other, and the alpha loses complete control. At that point, you just need to stay mobile, use their numbers against them, wait for an opening, and slip away while they're tangled up fighting over who's in charge. The silence in the room felt heavy enough to generate its own gravity field. Of course, Kade continued casually. If we're in a situation where escape isn't the goal, there are faster methods. Krothy spines have this gap right at the base of the skull, and if you've got anything sharp, like say a broken piece of your own datapad, you could. Moving on, Vrell said loudly. Very loudly. Final scenario. You face a Threxian war beast, 12 feet tall, armored hide, capable of throat pouch. Kade interrupted. Vrell stopped. What? Threxian war beasts have a throat pouch they use for territorial calls. Flexible membrane, almost no protection. You get under its guard, one solid hit to that pouch, and the thing literally chokes on its own inflation reflex. Drops in about 5 seconds. They're basically walking design flaws. I watched Instructor Vrell's mandibles work silently for a moment, processing this. Around the room, my fellow cadets wore expressions ranging from shock to horror to, in Bleep Bloop's case, what I'm pretty sure was digital admiration. Cadet Kade, Vrell finally said, her voice careful, measured, like she was defusing a bomb. How exactly does your species know all of this information? You have been Federation members for only 3 cycles. Kade looked genuinely confused by the question. We read the orientation materials? You know, the cultural database, biological surveys, species profiles. It's all in there. Those profiles were never intended as tactical guides. Really? Kade blinked. Then why include all the anatomical details? I mean, if you're going to tell us where a species' major organs are located, their sensory weaknesses, their instinctual behaviors, what did you think we were going to do with that information? Make friendship bracelets. Bleep bloop chimed hopefully. Humans, Vrell said slowly, and I could see her reassessing every decision that had led to this moment. Read the diplomatic database as a threat assessment manual? Well, yeah. Kade looked around the room like he was searching for support. I mean, what if things go wrong? What if someone attacks you? You should know how to defend yourself. That's just common sense. Common sense. Right. Because normal species look at a catalog of neighbors and immediately start planning how to fight all of them. That's totally reasonable behavior. Class dismissed, Vrell announced suddenly. I need to file a report. Several reports. Possibly a psychological evaluation request. As we filed out, I fell into step beside Kade. I had to know. Hey, so, that question you asked at the beginning. About temporary versus forever. You've actually got 12 methods for the permanent option. Oh, way more than 12, Kade said cheerfully. That was just off the top of my head. If I had time to prepare? Access to tools. Man, the number goes way up. He said it like he was discussing his favorite recipes. Your species terrifies me. I told him honestly. Yeah, we get that a lot. He patted me on the shoulder with what I think he meant as reassurance. But hey, look on the bright side. We're on your side. As he walked away, whistling something that sounded almost peaceful, I realized something. The galaxy had spent the last 3 cycles wondering what humanity would contribute to the Federation. What unique perspective they'd bring to our civilization. Well, now we knew that we'd invited apex predators to the party, handed them the guest list, and they'd spent the whole time figuring out how to fight everyone in the room. And the really scary part. They thought they were just being friendly. Mara appeared beside me, her scales a confused rainbow of emotions. So, are we glad they're allies? Or should we sleep with one eye open? I thought about that for a moment. Yes, I finally said. Yes to which part? Both. Definitely both.